Where I'm from is from a small town called Dayton, Ohio. I ended up coming here because my mother was terminally ill with stage 4 leiomyosarcoma cancer, and I came here to care for her. It was 2010. I'm 42, so maybe about, I don't know. Yes, I was in the Army. Technically 10 years. When I first went in as a cook because I couldn't cook a lick, couldn't boil water. So I got a bonus, and I also got the lesson of learning how to cook. I wanted to see the world, but I also wanted to give back to my country, where I hadn't went too far in life. Like I wasn't able to travel due to financial reasons. And I used to see these commercials about an army of one and how you can get an education and you're also serving your country, but you also get to travel. And so I didn't have any children, and I wasn't close with my biological family at the time, and so I chose to try my luck. Shalamar Parrish is a woman now. But my story started when it came to foster care. It started at the age of 12. Before the age of 12, I was living with my maternal grandmother, who also passed of cancer. And the reason being is because my mother was addicted to drugs real bad, and she couldn't support us at the time. And so my grandmother stepped in, and after my grandmother passed, due to my grieving, I was real angry, and so my family couldn't handle that, and so they chose to send me away to a group home. At the time it was horrible. I had lost my grandmother, the only real mom that I knew. I had was not in communication with my mother. I was not in communication with my biological family. They ended up sending me like 45 miles away from home, and I had never even heard of that town. It's a little small town called Springfield, Ohio. And they placed me in a home with 12 other girls who were like strangers to me in the beginning. I mean, we ended up bonding over time, but I was scared. I was hurt, I was angry. I was confused, and I was still grieving the loss of both of my mothers. The group home was horrible. It was not a family atmosphere. It was more so, it was like we were being punished for what our parents caused. So it was like no time could we ever have friends come and hang out. If we did go out and we walked to a park, we had to be right back within an hour and sign back in and then go back to the park. The food, the refrigerator and stuff, like most people could walk straight in the kitchen. We could not. It was padlocked. And we only could eat or have a drink at certain scheduled times. And so that's no good for anybody. Oh, well, it was only one that was younger than me, and she was 11. And then from there, it ranges from 12 to 18. I was there a little over a year. It was times that I would run away, but they would bring me right back. Yeah, they would come find me. I tried though. Well, I ended up moving back to Dayton, Ohio, to another group home that was supposed to have been better than that one, and it was not. They had one house lady, which was different from the other one because they were what you call staff members there. They only stayed 8 hours a day versus her, she was 24 hours, 7 days a week, and it was like living with mommy dears. So my caseworker agreed that it was like living with mommy dearest, and so she ended up finding me a loving home. The second group home, maybe like 30, 40 days. I couldn't take it there. Yes. Or I told my caseworker I would rather die than to keep being put in these situations where I'm being placed with people who does not have the passion that they're supposed to have for children like myself at the time. So I told her I would rather die than to stay there. And she agreed that it was time for me to go. When I'm talking to adults that are in a position possibly to help foster children, then what I would share with you is that is our duty, to take care of the fatherless and the motherless child. Donate an hour or two of your time just to let them know that there is someone out there that has not forgotten about them and that does care to even hear them out. I mean, if you could do something like that, that's far more beneficial to them than it would be for you not to show up and show concern. Foster care is when a child is without their biological family. They are wards of what they call the state, meaning that Uncle Sam takes care of them. A group home is just a building that houses more kids than what a foster parent is allowed to house. Like a foster parent, I think, can only house like maybe 4 to 5 kids in their home. A group home, you can range anywhere from 6 on up, just depending on how big the building is. For me, it was group home first because at the time I was real angry. A lot of people don't recognize that when someone passes in a family, how children really feel. They don't understand that children are grieving as well. And so, and when they're grieving that young, they don't know how to really control their emotions. And so, with that being said, because I was so angry, it was a far difference from the Shalamar that I used to be. And so they thought that I needed more extensive care. And so that's why I went to a group home. But the ideal is for most children to go into a foster care setting, which is more of a family setting. I was placed with an older woman. She was like in her 70s, and all her children were grown. And she was more like a mother/grandmother figure. She was getting up, cooking breakfast in the morning, something that I was not used to in a long time. There would be lunch, there would be dinner, and there would be sit-downs where we'll just, as a family, sit down and watch a show or talk. It was more of the environment that I was used to when my grandmother was living. Yes, it was several teenage girls. That's all she took in at the time. And some of them was in and out. You know, I stayed the longest, even though in her mind I was the worst. But she said it was always something about me that kept her hanging on to me. About 3 years. Well, I ended up moving from that foster home, and I moved in with a family member, their best friend, who was also a foster parent. She just wanted to take me in, and so I ended up hurting my foster mother's heart because I ended up leaving that foster home, and I ended up going and staying with her, and that didn't last long. Yeah, it was my choice. I thought that it would be better for me because she didn't have any children at all, and so it would have just been me, you know, being the only child. And not only that, I already knew her. She watched me grow up. I wasn't there very long because she couldn't control me. She basically let me do any and everything, and I ended up getting pregnant at the age of 16, and she didn't want me to be pregnant by the guy that I was pregnant by. And so I ended up having an abortion. I had to go to the clinic by myself. They didn't want to give me the abortion because at the time, instead of being 3 months, I was 5. And so, but I cried and I told them that if I don't get this, then I'm going to have to move and go to another foster home. And I didn't want to do that. And so I ended up really against my principles. But at the time, I had no other alternative, so I thought. And so I ended up aborting my child. And then about 2 weeks later, I ended up having to move from there anyway. It just, it's like I'm that kid all over again whenever I go back to all of that. And so I've always strived on not looking back. You know, I can't control all of that stuff, but I can control my direction. And so I really never try to look back. I ended up going to another foster home in Dayton as well. And this lady lived in a huge house, and she only had one biological daughter, but she also had another foster daughter that I knew just from the foster care circuit. And at the time, she had her first child. I was the oldest there, and so they kind of like looked up to me. And when I first moved there, I didn't have a bed. And so she told my caseworker that she was in the process of getting me a bed. And I was okay with sleeping on the floor a few nights, but that ended up lasting months and months of me not having a bed. And so, she constantly stayed gone because she was kind of young. So she constantly stayed gone, and we had to fend for ourselves. So here it is, it's 3 young ladies in a home who barely know how to cook. And sometimes there will be no food. I mean, to the point to where we had to call the caseworker. And the caseworker brought us out granola bars, breakfast granola bars. And so what I did was, I got tired of them crying to me, and I got tired of trying to hustle up or steal to feed us. And so I went to Children's Services and asked to speak to the director over Children's Services. And they were wondering, who is this kid, you know? And I was demanding to speak to her, and she didn't want to speak. And so then what I did was I went to the Dayton Daily News, and I told them that I had a story that I wanted to share about the opposite side of good foster homes. And I wanted to at least show them that, hey, sometimes just giving a biological parent support is sometimes better than taking the kid from that home and putting them in an even worse environment. And so they ended up coming out, and they interviewed me and the other foster girl, and we both agreed what was going on was indeed a fact. And so they went to Children's Services, and next thing you know, Children's Services shipped me off to I'm skipping a part. I went to my high school, to the art teacher, and I said, I want to picket. I want to protest in front of Children's Services. And so he said, why? And I told him. And he said, well, after school, you come back and I'll help you. And so on one side of the sign, it says, Lord, hear our prayer. We need decent people to come forth and care for us. And then on the other side, it says, no peace should be given to the wicked. And so I went to Children's Services, and I, by myself, protested. And that kind of like ticked them off. And then on top of the news coming to them and talking to them, ticked them off, and so they shipped me to a place that's called Rosemont in Columbus, Ohio, that was ran by nuns. That was the best thing they could have ever done for me, and that's begun my change in loving myself. When I got there, it was on lockdown. We were locked down 24 hours a day. It was for like the bad teenagers. Well, I had a counselor who asked me to share my story with her, and I did. And she said, well, I believe that they sent you here to shut you up. And she said, but we're going to make the best out of it. And she said, do you know why you started getting angry when you were 12? And I said, no. I said, I was just ticked off. And she said, no, you were grieving. She said, who wouldn't be grieving if you had a drug-addicted mother who was not around? You had an absentee father who was not around. You had a grandmother who was your main support, but now is deceased, so she's not around. What kid wouldn't be grieving? And when she said that to me, it solved what I thought was wrong in me. It's one thing for people to point their finger and say that you're bad, but it's another when you feel like, yeah, I'm bad. But then it better explained to me why I was so angry. And what she told me was, you're not in control of everything before this moment, but you are in control of everything that happens after. And so that has stuck with me, and that has caused me to be on a different journey. Most foster children that I know of have given up. They have thrown in a towel, and I just refuse not to. Well, I stayed in Rosemont for a while, and I ended up being a model student there. They actually helped me to catch up in school, so they skipped me from the 7th to the 9th grade. And the nuns took a liking to me, so I'm pretty certain they're probably still praying for me to this day. But they took a liking to me, and they wanted me to be in their advanced group home. And when I tell you, that's the ideal group home. If ever I would like to model my group homes after a group home, it would be theirs. When I got over there, they taught me how to budget. They taught me the importance of having a job. They taught me the importance of good credit. They allowed me to sign out and stay gone 5 hours, and just call every now and then to let them know that I was safe. Yeah, they trusted me, and I trusted them. They allowed me to get a job, and so I started working just as soon as I moved over there. And so what they would tell me is, hey, you can do whatever you want to do with your money, but you're 16. In 2 years, you will be considered an adult. Don't you want to have money saved up? Don't you want to give yourself a fighting chance before we let you go? And I said, yeah, I do. And so they said, so what are you willing to do? So I said, well, I'm willing to give each pay half of that pay for you guys to put up for me. And the other half that I'm left with, I'm going to spend half of it on getting things that I feel like my apartment or wherever I'm going to live will be needing. And then I blew the other half, or maybe nails or getting my hair done or something. But they taught me how to be responsible, and they taught me how to prepare for the future. I was altogether I was in Rosemont from the age of 16 to 18, but I got emancipated from there at 17. But they still kept a close eye on me until my 18th birthday. Well, after I left Rosemont, me and a girlfriend of mine thought that it was just going to be the ideal situation to live in the suburbs. We both thought that if we both did our part, we could afford this luxury apartment. Well, that lasted maybe about 3 months. We ended up getting kicked out of that. But at the time, she had also gotten herself pregnant. And so she put herself on like a housing list. And I ended up moving in to an apartment with her that I wasn't supposed to be living in, because it was just for her and her daughter. And I didn't like that situation. I felt like I was leaning on my friend more than I wanted to. And so I ended up making the decision to go to Job Corps. I figured in Job Corps I can get my GED because I had not graduated, and I felt like I could at least get a trade. And I would have a place, a roof over my head and all of that. So I ended up making a choice to go all the way to Detroit, Michigan to Job Corps, which she wasn't too happy about that. But again, I wanted to see the world by any means, and I took that route. So Job Corps was an ideal situation for me, because it was like you're still an adult, but they pay you to do right by yourself. Like, they pay you to get an education. They pay you to get a trade. And then they reward you later on if you stay the course, and they'll pay you again, just because you completed what is necessary for you to even have a fighting chance in this world. To me, it's a win-win situation, but I blew it. But I blew it after I got my GED, which I had to study hard for it. My plan was I was supposed to graduate in 96, so I wanted to have my GED in 96. And then I kind of like felt like it was more beneficial for me to have my GED than to have had to go the whole 12 years of high school. I guess I kind of liked the short route. So I ended up getting my GED, but I did not complete my nurse's aid course. And the reason why I didn't is because me and a girl was arguing over a guy, and they threw us both out. And so back to my friend's house I went for a little bit. When I went back to my friend's house this time, I felt like I was a failure. Even though I had that paper in my hand that told me that I was not, I still felt like I was a failure. I found myself going into like a deep depression, and I think that was like my first time ever saying, no, I need to learn who this God is that everybody talks about, especially the nuns, And so I found myself praying more than I had ever when I went back and stayed with her. Well, you would think that it would have had me on a straight and narrow course, but instead I took a more familiar path that I seen my mother go down. I started hanging out with friends that were not friends of mine at all. They weren't even friends to their own selves. So they were introducing me to drugs, and I'm talking about very hard drugs, and alcohol. And they were also introducing me to the lifestyle of prostitution. It wasn't like being a streetwalker, but we did have a madam. And now that I look back on life, she should be in jail because it was sex trafficking. And so at the time, it was beneficial because it gave us food, and it kept the shelter over our head. And so I did it. But I did it for like 6 months, and then I saved up enough money, and then I went and got my own place, It was a 1-bedroom, but it had security locks and a swimming pool, so I thought that I was living a life. Yeah, and it had a bed and no furniture though. It took me like 7 months to get my furniture. I had to wait for my income taxes because I ended up getting a job. And I ended up getting, believe it or not, I failed at being a nurse's aide in Job Corps, but I ended up passing the course when I came back home. I did a 2-week course and I passed, and so I ended up being a nurse's aide anyway. And so I would save half my money, and then I would pay my bills, and then whatever I had left over, that's what I blew, and I blew it often. And so that lasted for a while, but then I ended up allowing my mother, the woman who didn't come from me, I ended up allowing her and her husband to move in my 1-bedroom apartment, and I looked out for them for a while, and I found myself falling back into that deep depression. And so I knew that I wanted some way out, and I kept seeing these Army of One commercials, and I went and tried to take the ASVAB test one time, failed it, went back, failed it again. And one day I'm at work and I'm on my lunch break, and just like lifting the older people and seeing them die after you had bonded with them, it took a toll on me. I'm talking about mentally and physically. And so on my lunch break, I'm sitting out in my little car, because I had bought me a little Escort. So I'm sitting out in my car and I'm crying, and I'm asking God to please help me. Like I can't do this no more. And so, believe it or not, a thought came, call the Army recruiting office. And so I called them, and they told me to come after work. And when I went this time, I passed. And I passed and got a nice little score. Not as high as I should have gotten, but good enough to get in. And then they wanted me to take the post test the same night. And so I went and took the post test and passed that as well. And they told me, Shalamar, you got 2 weeks and then you're leaving. And so I had to leave. My first duty station was in South Carolina. It's called Fort Jackson. When I went, I thought I sold my soul to the devil. Yeah, they were horrible. I understand it now, but at the time, like I thought that I really sold my soul to the devil because they were so mean. Everybody was mean around us. There was no room for compassion at that time, you know, and they had us doing exercises that I had never done in my life, and they hurt real bad. So I really thought that I had made the wrong decision up until I graduated basic training. Did I understand? They rode me kind of hard because I had the attitude and all of that, so they rode me harder than they did some of the other soldiers. So after I had graduated basic training, I was the only one that didn't have any family show up. And so my mean drill sergeants, and it was like 5 of them, they sat me down and was telling me how proud they were of me. And they explained to me the reason why they were so hard. You know, it was to treat me like the people would treat me if ever I was to have gone to war. They're not going to be sympathetic. They're not going to have compassion. And so they wanted to see that I still had integrity, and I still had courage, and I still had the determination, even when I'm being pressed with anger or meanness. And so they all gave me a standing ovation, and let me sneak off post, which was really against the law. It made me feel good. It made me feel good because I thought they hated me. I really did, but they were very, very proud of me. And so from there, I went to AIT and became a cook. Oh, there was something I forgot to tell you too. When my mother and her husband moved in with me in that one-bedroom apartment, well, you can imagine that it got real tight real quick. So I ended up putting my name on a list for low-income housing, and I ended up moving over there. And so I was not like the typical teenage young girl there. I wouldn't even have company come to the house, mainly because I was embarrassed. I never wanted to live in the projects. I never really wanted to rely on the system to feed me or clothe me. I felt like I was able-bodied, and that and I have never been a lazy person, so I kind of didn't want anybody to even know that I was there. And so when I ended up getting accepted into the military, and they only gave me these 2 weeks to get all packed up, and I was about to ship out, I had to go to the apartment complex and talk to them. And I was just honest. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to make it through basic training, but if I do not make it through basic training, I don't want to be homeless either. And so they said because I was even trying to take the initiative, that they would do all they could in their power to make certain that I keep my apartment and no one breaks in it. And they actually kept that promise. When I got back, everything was still in the same place that I left it in, and they ended up paying my rent for me. And the job that I had wanted me to go, even though they felt like they were losing a valuable employee. Those were their words, not mine. They ended up keeping my car that I had because I couldn't take my vehicle with me. And so they kept it in their garage until I was able to get back home. So during my duty in basic training, I ended up meeting a sergeant. He was actually my sergeant, and we were not supposed to even be liking each other. It's called fraternization. But we were so interested in one another that he put in to move to a different unit so we wouldn't be breaking the law. And so he actually had custody of his son, and he had been in the service since he was like 17, 18, and at the time he was like 25. And so I commended that, even though I was not used to a working type guy. I was actually fond of drug dealers coming up, the street guy, and it's because of my environment. You know, that's all I seen, and all the women that was around me, or the teenage young ladies that was around me, all gravitated towards those kind of guys. So why shouldn't I have one or two? And so when I met that guy, he showed me a different caliber of man. And so I ended up falling in love with him, and we ended up getting married. And the marriage was good, but it was based upon a lie. I later found out that he was actually bisexual. And though I don't have anything against that, I have a issue with deceit. And so I tried to make it work, but it takes two. I wanted to go to counseling. He did not. And I can understand why he didn't. He was afraid that maybe the counselor would go against policy and tell that he indeed broke one of the cardinal rules in the service, which is he committed adultery. And then at the time, they had an issue with male and male being together. And so he just didn't want to take the risk. And I didn't want him to take the risk. And so I made the decision to file for divorce, which is one of the hardest things that I ever done, because I always felt like when you get married, it's supposed to be forever. It's supposed to be for life. And I wrestled with that a lot. And I just couldn't stay. And so I ended up leaving the military, and I ended up going back home. Well, during my separation, I was also dealing with a situation in the military. Some things had happened in the military, and I had gotten very, very sick. I had migraines so bad I could barely hear myself think, or I didn't want to hear nobody's voice. I didn't want to hear a telephone ringing, anything. Everything just hurt my head. And on top of that, I later found out that I was suffering from what you call anxiety disorder. And so with that being said, you add the factor that you just found out that your husband, the love of your life, is bisexual. And you could just imagine, I lost my mind. Like I really lost my mind. And so I have a aunt who flew all the way out to Colorado to get me. And she brought me home to Dayton, Ohio. And I hadn't been home to Dayton, Ohio in years. But because I was so messed up, she felt compelled to come and get her niece. And so when she came and got me, she nursed me back. And I'm forever grateful to you, lady. You know who you are. She nursed me back to health. And when she did that, it made me start writing. I used to write. I can remember writing like as early as 5. I would write short stories and poems and plays. But when I was going through all that I was, I guess I had what you call writer's block. And so I kind of like put that on hold, because the main focus at that time was getting through life, the best way I knew how. And sometimes my methods were really, really bad, but they somehow worked, because I'm sitting here right now talking to you. So I started back writing, and I didn't know what I was writing about, but I knew that whatever I was writing needed to be written. And so what I did was I just started writing my thoughts. What was I feeling that day? Why was I feeling it? What do I need to make that feeling better, or to appreciate having that feeling? And so I compiled all of those things, all of those thoughts into, hey, something is supposed to be said right now. And what is all of these thoughts that I've been having, what are they trying to get me to see? And when I sat down and read over everything that I had written, and I'm talking about a notebook full of my thoughts, it showed me that I needed to make sense of my journey, how I got there, and what I could do to make it better. And that's what started me on the journey of creating Leading Lady. Leading Lady was inspired by the life that I had with my mother. I looked at all the times that I did not want to make the same choices in picking a mate, a partner that she had, only to have done the exact same thing. I looked at all the drugs that I never wanted to try, but ended up doing the same thing that she had done. I looked at all the things that I never wanted to do, because my mother did them first, and I tried my best to go to the opposite direction, but managed to end up on the same road that she was on. So what I looked at was, hey, it's a lot of people who have said, hey, I don't want to be nothing like my father. I don't want to be nothing like my mother. But then they end up becoming just like them in a lot of ways. And sometimes they find out that's not such a bad thing. And so I wanted to reach readers and show them, hey, I'm just like you. You know, you didn't want to be like her. I didn't want to be like her, you know, or you didn't want to be like your father. I didn't want to be like my father either. But truth is, I'm just like them both. It's just what I do with those decisions after I make them that is the difference. And so I just really wanted to give people a glimpse into that life, but I also wanted to share with them a glimpse into foster children's lives and how I don't want to say the sins, or let me just say the bad choices of the parents sometimes are a hindrance to the child. And so I just basically just wanted to give people a different perspective than what many people are believing. Believe it or not, yes. Since I was young, I always knew that God was going to use me somehow, and I was never like really shy to tell my feelings beforehand. I'm actually shyer now than I was when I was younger. I guess when you're younger, you're more courageous, right? But I always knew that I wanted to reach a lot of people, and so I felt like the best way to do that, because I don't have no other talents. I can't sing, I can't dance, you know. I felt like maybe if I'm silent but my hands speak for me, that would be more of an impact to the world. So yeah, in a way, I kind of figured if I stayed the course, I would be published. The young lady who may be going through what I went through in life, who does not feel like she's worth anything, I want to show her that she is worth it all. The young man who is going through what I had to experience, I want him to know that he doesn't have to resort to street life. It's better on the straight and narrow. I want to help the less fortunate see that even though you're going through hard times now, doesn't mean that it's going to always be that way. So don't give up. I have a saying. I'm not in control of how I got here, but I'm in control of what journey or what path I'm trying to be on. And so what I did was I didn't lose sight of that. Yeah, you are going through a lot at the time, but you still got to keep your eye on the prize. Don't give up on yourself, even when other people may make you feel like they did. Don't you give up on yourself. A great one. I wouldn't be here at all if it wasn't for him. The creator of all things, heaven, earth, you, me, the creator of it all. Well, if you would listen to me, yes, seek out the same God that I seeked out. But if you choose to go another route, that's fine too. Just as long as you don't lose sight of who you are and how great you are. Oh my God. If I could go back in time and to give my younger self some great advice, I can almost guarantee that it would be me telling her, hey, you are somebody. You are good. And this is something that you're going to get through. Just believe in yourself and forgive those who hurt you. Learn not to hurt yourself just because someone else inflicted pain on you. And learn not to inflict pain on others. Seek God. Seek being around great people who is going to be a support system to you. And find you someone to mentor you. Not the drug dealer and not the girl who's trying to grow up too fast, but maybe a teacher, maybe a next door neighbor. Yes, it's okay to ask for help. You must ask for help. You can only get so far on your own. Someone else has to help you. What I would say to the nuns, if I ever get to see at least one of them, I love y'all so much. And thank you so much for praying for me and believing in me and encouraging me, and just thanks. I truly appreciate it. I wanted to tell my story to hopefully reach as many people's lives as I possibly can, but I would be okay if I could just reach one person's life. I want people not to give up. Don't give up on themselves. Don't lose sight of the real goal and the real mission for you being here. You're here to serve a purpose, and don't give up on yourself before you even know what your purpose is in life. What's next for me? Hopefully, God willing, What's next for me, God willing, is I would love to own a group home. I have one son that I adopted. I had a couple of more sons that were foster to adopt sons that I wasn't able to adopt because I ended up getting in a domestic violence relationship. And so what I would like to do now is own as many group homes as I possibly can to help take care of some of these fatherless and motherless children. So if ever I had a dream that he would answer next, it's that. Because it would be based on love. And what I've learned is that love is unconditional. So I'm not going to be putting them out because they're coming grieved and angry and a little hard-headed. It's going to be based on love. Do I have another book? Yes, I do. I'm in the process of writing another one, and it's called A Shame and a Scandal, and it's a sequel to Leading Lady. I wanted to tell my story to encourage as many people as I possibly can, especially you. I'm here to help. We all need help. I still need help. And I'm here to help you if at all possible. If you're finding yourself alone, if you're finding yourself uncertain about life, fearful about life, or abandoned, you can always reach out to me, and I'll try my best to get back to you. And if ever I cannot Don't you wait on me before you encourage yourself. Look yourself in the mirror and tell yourself, I'm somebody, and I'm be okay. And tell yourself, I'm gonna make it, and life is gonna be so much better for me than it is right now. And never give up on that. Never give up on that promise that you made to yourself. Because you are someone. And I love you. And I need for you to love yourself. If ever you need for me to come and talk to you, if I can, I will. Or if ever you need me to come and speak to someone, I will. There's more information about me in the description below, and you can do it. And I'm here for you. Bye.